13 years have blazed past since her startling rebirth as Rena. Arriving at the Royal Academy at last, Baron's daughter Rena Dallin gleams with fierce ambition. Stepping into the middle division, she finally stands upon the grand, treacherous stage of the game. Discovering her holy magic attribute at age 5 spectacularly unlocked the dormant memories of her past life. A whirlwind of shameless and chaotic events has consumed her ever since realizing her extraordinary reincarnation. She never expected the grueling, drawn-out journey required to secure her place as Baron Dallin's adopted daughter. Overconfident in her past life knowledge, she found the brutally difficult entrance exams completely overwhelming. Fortunately, the desperate letter of recommendation she begged from the High Priest secured her admission. Brushing off the initial struggle, she confidently decides that successfully infiltrating the academy is all that matters. With a determined gaze, she fiercely pivots her attention toward her ultimate, glittering goal. Rallying her focus, Rena sets her predatory sights entirely on the prime royal target. She zeroes in on the dazzling royal figure commanding the entire room's attention. The second in line to the throne, Prince Ligras radiates a mesmerizing, flashy aura. Closing the distance in a flash, she boldly initiates contact with the captivated royal. Introducing herself as the eldest Dallin daughter, she instantly charms the prince into praising her exquisite beauty. Smitten, he smoothly declares their sudden, magnetic meeting to be an undeniable act of fate. Playing along with thrilling ease, she eagerly embraces his romantic advance. Pulling her close, Ligras immediately invites her into a passionate, whirlwind romance. Shocked by the rapid progression, Rena realizes she just effortlessly became the prince's lover. Bewildered, she aggressively questions how capturing the prince completely bypassed all the expected romantic hurdles. Suspicion creeps in as she wonders why the game's designated villainess hasn't intervened to ruin everything. Her tactical thoughts turn immediately to Yulia Cornell, the formidable duke's daughter meant to block her path. Digging for crucial clues, she actively interrogates her classmates about Yulia's peculiar absence. To her absolute shock, the oblivious students have no idea that Yulia is supposed to be engaged to Ligras. Frantic, she wonders if the supposedly concrete royal engagement is being kept a strict, dark secret. The powerful Cornell family is supposed to act as Ligras's primary political backing and the heroine's greatest enemy. Duke Cornell commands immense political power as the influential chairman of the Lord's Council. In the original timeline, earnest Yulia's strictness drives a wavering Ligras straight into the heroine's waiting arms. Gripped by sudden unease, Rena realizes this timeline has deviated wildly from the game's established script. She marvels at how easily she ensnared the prince without triggering a single dramatic, world-shaking event. Doubting her own hollow victory, she questions if this effortless conquest even counts as a proper scheme. The brutal realization hits that the notorious, bottom-ranking Ligras is steadily dropping out of the royal succession race. Her grand ambition of becoming a supreme queen shatters as Ligras's political value plummets into the abyss. Despite the crumbling royal prospects, a stubborn, fiery determination still flickers within her. She ruthlessly banks on First Prince Lorenz suffering a catastrophic assassination attempt that will leave him physically disabled. Discarding orthodox perfection, she admits her genuine, undeniable preference for the flashy and sparkling Ligras. She coldly acknowledges the looming reality that the second prince is destined to fail his royal campaign. Everything now hinges on Lauren's incoming tragedy, though Ligras's utter uselessness remains a severe, unpredictable liability. A shocking epiphany strikes as Rena deduces that Yulia might also possess dangerous memories from a past life. Frustrated and bewildered, Rena questions why a reincarnated Yulia would intentionally abandon the coveted role of the prince's fiancée. Calculating her path to the throne, Rena smugly accepts the villainess's willing surrender of Prince Ligras. She ruthlessly deduces that Prince Lauren's inevitable downfall will guarantee her ascension as queen. Fleeing Ligras's plummeting reputation, the surrounding noble ladies scatter rapidly amid rumors of his doomed succession. Exposing his toxic nature, the selfish prince only fakes gentleness when violently dragging targets into empty classrooms. Soon after, shocking rumors regarding Yulia's appearance finally breach Rena's eager ears. Whispers maliciously spread that Lady Yulia suffers from incredibly unfortunate looks compared to her stunning family. Vicious gossip ruthlessly brands the once feared duke's daughter as shockingly overweight. Barking with cruel laughter, Rena celebrates this hilarious twist that completely derailed the villainess's engagement. Relieved by her rival's downfall, she confidently declares that the villainess is no longer a threat. Plagued by unnatural hatred for his mother, Prince Loren faces inevitable assassination as consort Irene seizes royal power. Though Loren miraculously survives the queen's death, lingering poison irreversibly ravages the first prince's body. However, the timeline regarding the imminent assassination attempt begins to severely confuse Rina's perfectly laid plans. She realizes the impending noble-led attack fundamentally misaligns with the game's established chronological history. This violent political catastrophe should historically strike long before the second prince even comes of age. Brushing off the discrepancies, Rina aggressively convinces herself that Lygres will unequivocally claim the crown. Brimming with desperate confidence, she firmly secures her belief in his absolute, undeniable royal victory. Playing a cunning tactical game, the reincarnator decides she must rapidly secure a reliable backup lover just in case. Shifting the focus, Yulia Cornell reveals a bizarre childhood obsession with dirt despite her lofty noble status. While her eldest brother Theodore inherits the grand Cornell estate, Yulia prepares to take over the modest county of Belus. This remote Belus territory resembles nothing more than a bleak, impoverished gathering of struggling farming villages. Discovering her grim inheritance at age 7, a fiercely determined Yulia immediately imported wheat seedlings to save the land. Driven by intense duty, she dedicated her entire existence to revitalizing the desolate territory she was meant to rule. Launching a furious agricultural revolution, Yulia aggressively cultivated local specialty crops through intense selective breeding. She expertly processed her massive harvests, crafting delicious mounds of bread, sweet jam, and rich dried goods. Constantly tasting her endless experimental products, she unintentionally devoured massive amounts of calories. That relentless, necessary taste testing became the undeniable culprit behind her sudden, dramatic weight gain. Guided by fragmented visions, Yulia theorizes her past life was likely that of a humble, hard-working orchard child. Vivid summer memories of low-growing fruit trees bursting with small, sweet harvests flood her reincarnated mind. Though she misunderstands the mechanics of reincarnation, Yulia allows these persistent, dreamlike memories to guide her actions. Harnessing her previous existence, she wields advanced knowledge of selective breeding from a modern agricultural university. A burning desire pushes her to fiercely cultivate sweeter, larger fruits packed with an intoxicating fragrance. Wielding the science of selective breeding, she meticulously forces those sweet, agricultural wishes into reality. Facing harsh botanical realities, she acknowledges that successful selective breeding remains a brutally difficult endeavor. Balancing massive yields with uncompromising nutritional value stands as a critical, unyielding challenge in her crusade. Undergoing a magical appraisal at 5, she shockingly awakened the ultra-rare attributes of water, earth, and light. Possessing 3 distinct magic attributes instantly marks her as an incredibly rare and powerful anomaly in this world. Though elite mage lineages boast up to 5 elements, Yulia finds her tri-elemental magic perfectly lethal for agriculture. Channeling her raw elemental energy, she unleashes a blinding surge of mystical power directly into the soil. Infused with immense earth and light magic, her customized plants explode into monstrous growth at terrifying speeds. Bypassing decades of agonizing wait time, her overwhelming magic utterly shatters the limits of traditional selective breeding. Infused with potent magic, she effortlessly accelerates crop growth and shatters years of painful waiting. She wields this miraculous power like an impossible, dreamlike magic. Embracing her destiny, Yulia realizes this incredible agricultural power is the exact reason for her rebirth. Sunlight cascades across the grand estate as a new, fateful morning breaks. Blinking away her heavy exhaustion, she sluggishly prepares for the draining day ahead. Steeling her nerves, Yulia prepares for the intense pressure of the first formal meeting with her new fiancé. Her designated royal partner is none other than the notorious second prince, Lygres. Even her usually stoic father harbors deep, unsettling worries about handing her over to the selfish, womanizing royal. An elegant carriage rolls onto the royal grounds, sealing her unavoidable fate. A crushing wave of absolute depression washes over her as the dreaded meeting approaches. Groomed by a hopelessly spoiled upbringing, Lygres has morphed into a beast entirely devoid of reason or basic morality. This incredibly toxic, selfish boy stands as Yulia's unavoidable royal fiancé. Desperation grips her as she wildly ponders if refusing the match is even possible. Her father grimly reminds her that crushing this royal proposal from His Majesty the King is virtually impossible. Tense silence suffocates the grand meeting room as the two powerful factions finally face each other. Ligris shoots a sharp, piercing glare across the opulent table. A deceptively pleasant voice breaks the silence, warmly acknowledging the presence of a beautiful buttercup. Suddenly exploding with unhinged rage, Ligris violently screams that he absolutely refuses to marry a pig. Thrashing in furious disgust, the prince outright refuses to let such an unsightly bride stand beside his magnificent form. Delusional with arrogance, he viciously demands the ugly creature be banished from the sight of a man standing at the kingdom's pinnacle. Spitting pure venom, Ligris ruthlessly declares that ugly things possess zero right to even live. Completely unfazed by the royal tantrum, Yulia's father coldly orders the servants to brew fresh tea for the prince's sore throat. A flustered royal aide frantically refuses the tea, realizing the catastrophic political damage has already been done. Seizing absolute control, Duke Cornell ruthlessly declares the engagement completely cancelled and discards the unsigned documents. Shock and absolute terror instantly paralyze the faces of the royal entourage. The Duke icily demands that this disastrous engagement never be mentioned again. Delivering a fatal political strike, he smoothly reveals he recorded the entire humiliating outburst with a hidden magic device. The royal officials gasp in sheer horror at the unauthorized recording, only to be crushed when the Duke reveals his official chancellor permits. Duke Cornell confidently states he recorded the interaction flawlessly since it involved a potential crown prince. He coldly weaponizes logic, stating such monumental political matters require absolute caution. Without a single backward glance, Yulia's formidable father gracefully sweeps his daughter out of the ruined room. Much to Yulia's absolute delight, the agonizing royal engagement safely shatters into a million pieces. She never anticipated the shocking arrival of a second, completely separate royal proposal the very next morning. Absolute bewilderment strikes her as she reels from the impossible news. This time, the grand marriage proposal stems directly from the earnest first Prince Loren. Acting as Ligris's older brother, Loren fiercely competes in the brutal war for the kingdom's throne. The Duke realizes his powerful Cornell faction acts as an incredibly lucrative prize for the ambitious prince. The king heavily favors Ligris for the crown, backed by his mother's powerful foreign connections. However, the highly capable first Prince Loren boasts undeniable qualifications as the queen's earnest firstborn. This unexpected, explosive royal proposal ignites the opening sparks of a kingdom-shattering turmoil. Skeptical lords fully aware of Ligris's toxic nature flatly refuse to support his ruthless bid for power. Both competing princes desperately scramble to secure the crucial political backing of the powerful Cornell family. Reeling from the brutal insult, Yulia bitterly accepts that enduring a political marriage is one thing, but being branded a pig crosses the line. Grappling with the cruel jab, she fleetingly contemplates whether she should finally try shedding a little weight. The ultimate tragedy shadowing second Prince Loren of the Kingdom of Meriadia stems entirely from having a foolish father. Though possessing a harmless disposition, King Cheyenne grew up hopelessly dull-witted despite his grandfather's intense re-education efforts. Determined to secure the royal bloodline, the wise grandfather meticulously selected a brilliant bride to anchor his foolish grandson. The former sovereign's legacy shines brightly through the exceptional wisdom of this carefully chosen royal matriarch. That brilliant foundation was none other than Queen Ginebra, Loren's sharp and capable mother. Empowered by her immense intellect, the wise queen deftly wielded her authority to stabilize the faltering king. Everything shattered 16 years ago when a diplomatic visit to a neighboring realm blindsided Cheyenne with sudden infatuation. Captivated by the lovely third princess, Cheyenne boldly demanded her hand from the cooperating king of Damash. That fateful foreign union birthed the scheming second consort Irene, mother to the troublesome Ligris. With Irene securing her royal foothold, Yulia of the prestigious Cornell ducal house was initially designated as Ligris's unfortunate fiancée. Manifesting extraordinary magical capacity alongside water, earth, and light attributes, Yulia boasts stunning flaxen hair and wisteria eyes. Rejecting dainty aristocratic norms, she routinely gets thoroughly caked in mud while passionately tilling the soil. Enduring grueling weekly horseback treks with royal guards, she tirelessly journeys to cultivate her future territory in Belize County. Through sheer agricultural grit, she single-handedly upgraded local wheat from cheap third-rate quality to respectable second-rate status by age 12. The industrious young noblewoman currently channels her brilliant talents within the middle division of the Magic Academy. Her transfer from the Royal Academy stemmed from a disastrous childhood incident where her earth magic obliterated a courtyard gazebo. Recognizing the urgent need for specialized magical oversight, the Duke swiftly transferred her enrollment to the Specialized Magic Academy. Comprehensive intelligence reports meticulously document the hidden capabilities and daily routines of Yulia Cornell. Observers recognize that binding such an absolute prodigy to a foolish and ill-natured younger prince would be a total waste. Overwhelmed by the sudden shifts in her destiny, Yulia feels her chest tighten with a restless, churning anxiety. The heavily anticipated day of the disastrous formal meeting finally arrives within the opulent palace halls. Exploding into a vicious rage, Ligras shrieks that he refuses to be shackled to a wretched pig. Spitting unhinged venom, the furious prince demands to know why such an ugly creature was chosen to defile his majestic presence. Raving with unbridled narcissism, Ligras screams that a flawless royal like him deserves a pristine bride while cursing his parents' choices. Staring blankly at the unhinged royal meltdown, Yulia wonders what absolute madness has consumed the prince's mind. Seizing absolute control of the shattered situation, Duke Cornell coolly announces his departure alongside his daughter. Peeking from a distance, First Prince Loren catches a breathless glimpse of the unfolding chaos. Utterly transfixed by her striking appearance, Loren silently whispers a spellbound assessment of the young lady. A sudden spark of profound fascination ignites deep within the First Prince's usually guarded heart. The electric tension in the air shifts as unexpected romantic currents begin to pull the nobles together. Swept away by an abrupt wave of emotion, Loren falls completely head over heels in love at first sight. The sudden onset of this fierce romantic obsession leaves surrounding courtiers utterly stunned by its swiftness. Reflecting on his own strictly arranged political upbringing, Loren finds himself captivated by this unprecedented emotional surge. Reviewing her prior candidacy as Ligras's intended, investigators scramble to uncover how she bypassed prior royal connections. Recognizing her overwhelming excellence across every domain, Loren's intense personal interest deepens into an unyielding pursuit. Observing from the shadows during their fateful first encounter, Loren watches as an infamous engagement tea party makes history. Expressing deep gratitude, Queen Ginevra praises the wise Duke Cornell for masterfully handling the disastrous meeting. She happily adds that Prince Loren was thoroughly impressed, finding the young lady incredibly cute. Left completely speechless, the Duke realizes Loren had intensely watched their family depart. Understanding the heavy stakes, the Duke acknowledges this new engagement successfully shields Yulia from the toxic second prince. He fiercely vows to protect his beloved daughter from the treacherous king, the second consort, and Ligras. Reeling from the sudden whiplash, Yulia questions her bizarre transition from Ligras to Loren. Plagued by mounting anxiety, she desperately wonders if turning down this second royal proposal is even politically possible. She dreads the catastrophic neglect her precious Belou's territory would suffer if she actually became queen. Breaking the formal tension, Queen Ginevra warmly greets Sophia Cornell after a long time apart. Maintaining polite decorum, Sophia gracefully hopes Her Majesty has been keeping well. Brushing off the stifling formalities, the Queen demands a simple, heartfelt hello from her old friend. Relieved to escape the rigid conversations of high society parties, Ginevra celebrates their intimate private reunion. Flustered, Sophia begs the Queen not to share embarrassing academy stories about their old teacher impressions. Shifting the focus smoothly, the Queen affectionately calls her son Loren forward. Staring in pure awe, Yulia finally locks eyes with the handsome First Prince Loren. Eager to catch up with Sophia, the Queen happily suggests the two young people introduce themselves to each other. Obediently agreeing, Loren accepts his mother's lovely idea to escort Yulia through the magnificent royal gardens. Bidding a fond temporary farewell, the Queen casually dismisses a visibly stunned Yulia. Snapping to attention, Yulia frantically bows to Her Majesty before quickly departing. Extending a graceful hand, Loren smoothly invites his new fiancée to walk with him. Blushing slightly at the attention, Yulia shyly accepts his perfect gentlemanly escort. Thrilled by the formal gesture, she realizes this is the very first time anyone besides her brother has escorted her. She marvels at how drastically this elegant stroll contrasts with her tomboyish childhood of running through muddy fields. Buzzing with fierce anticipation, she completely geeks out over the prospect of exploring the royal gardener's prized greenhouse. Chuckling warmly, Loren comments on Lady Yulia's visibly soaring and infectious spirits. Blushing furiously, Yulia frantically apologizes for getting completely carried away by her unapologetic plant obsession. Smiling gently, Loren reassures her not to worry because seeing her pure enjoyment genuinely makes him happy. He astutely asks if her bubbling excitement stems directly from their destination being the famous royal greenhouse. Readily admitting her agricultural bias, Yulia confesses her enduring, lifelong soft spot for all things botanical. Demonstrating sharp knowledge, Loren casually mentions her impressive crop improvement efforts back in her home territory. Internally panicking, Yulia realizes the royal family absolutely researched her extensively before proposing the grand engagement. Sweating bullets, she nervously wonders if their deep investigation uncovered her disastrous gazebo explosion. Changing the subject, Loren smoothly requests permission to call her Yulia, noting her special pen pal status with his mother. Stunned by the unexpected revelation, a flustered Yulia quickly grants him eager permission to use her first name. Shocked by the queen's high regard, she questions if Her Majesty truly considers her a cherished royal pen pal. A brilliant smile lights up her face as genuine, overwhelming happiness washes over the young noblewoman. Loren chuckles, revealing his mother thoroughly enjoys venting all her wild frustrations in her private letters to Yulia. Leaning in with an inquisitive smirk, Loren playfully prods her to reveal exactly what his mother constantly vents about. Flashing a mischievous grin, Yulia stubbornly refuses to break the queen's confidence and declares it an absolute secret. Amused by her steadfast loyalty, Loren gracefully accepts the classified secret with a charming, defeated smile. Pondering the queen's secret frustrations, Yulia wonders if the royal venting simply concerns recent makeup struggles. Remembering the homemade beauty serum she gifted the queen, she wisely decides to keep that botanical secret hidden from Loren. Suddenly, her eyes widen in absolute amazement as a magnificent botanical specimen captures her total attention. Gasping in pure wonder, she rushes toward the exotic flora with unbridled fascination. Instantly recognizing the rare bloom, she excitedly identifies it as an elusive orchid-scent flower native to the distant Darusta kingdom. Delighting in its rich molasses fragrance, she recalls her encyclopedia studies detailing how its unique nectar ferments almost immediately. Burning with scientific curiosity, she eagerly wonders if she could harvest its powerful yeast to uncover new agricultural properties. Amused by her intense passion, Loren smoothly offers to gift her the entire exotic flower right then and there. Stunned by the generous royal offer, she hesitates before enthusiastically confirming her desperate desire to study the plant. Frantically calculating logistics, she laments forgetting her specimen bags and worries about transporting the delicate flower home without damaging it. Smiling warmly at her botanical panic, Prince Loren smoothly elevates the offer by promising her the entire potted plant. Overwhelmed by the grand gesture, a flustered Yulia protests that receiving such a precious royal gift is far too much for a mere girl. Chuckling at her modesty, Loren swiftly reminds her that the powerful daughter of a duke could never be considered a mere girl. Dropping a romantic bombshell, Loren casually states she deserves it as his fiancée, leaving her sputtering to confirm if it is already official. The confident prince reveals that her formidable father has already delivered a highly favorable response to the royal proposal. Locking his intense gaze onto hers, Loren declares the grand engagement officially set as long as they both find happiness with each other. Leaning in with genuine concern, the royal suitor softly asks if she harbors any problems with their sudden arrangement. Flustered and caught completely off guard, she frantically waves her hands to deny any actual objections to the match. Regaining her composure, she admits her profound shock at how terrifyingly fast this monumental decision was finalized. She nervously points out the staggering speed of the new proposal, especially considering how easily her previous royal engagement shattered. Dropping his playful facade, Loren firmly confesses that he personally begged his royal mother to arrange this specific engagement. Utterly bewildered by this shocking confession, Yulia blinks in pure confusion and demands to know the reason why. Her tactical mind immediately jumps to a grim conclusion, assuming the royal family desperately craves her father's massive political backing. Pushing back with fierce logic, she argues that a brilliant prince could easily secure her family's support without resorting to marriage. Standing tall, she proudly defends her capable father's pragmatic approach to navigating the treacherous aristocratic landscape. She confidently asserts that Duke Cornell would willingly provide necessary political backing regardless of any romantic entanglements. Loren falls completely silent, his piercing gaze absorbing her fiercely pragmatic rejection of standard royal romance. Shattering her cynical assumptions, Loren firmly declares that political power has absolutely nothing to do with this sudden engagement. Staring directly into her stunned wisteria eyes, the first prince boldly confesses that he fell hopelessly in love with her at first sight. He vividly recalls the chaotic aftermath of her broken engagement to his foolish brother, watching her family stride away from the palace. From his distant vantage point, he watched her completely ignore the political disaster just to eagerly admire a simple garden shrub. Captivated by her pure, unbothered passion for a tiny twig, he instantly found her undeniably and devastatingly cute. A fierce blush immediately detonates across Yulia's cheeks as his painfully honest romantic confession thoroughly short-circuits her brain. Recovering her sharp tongue, she aggressively fires back by accusing His Highness of possessing absolute, horribly terrible taste in women. Completely unfazed by her defensive insult, Loren chuckles and stubbornly reiterates that he simply finds her incredibly cute. Internally panicking, she screams that falling for a chubby, recently dumped 14-year-old girl defies every ounce of aristocratic logic. Desperate to escape the suffocating romantic tension, she ruthlessly changes the subject to redirect his overwhelming affection. Deflecting his praises as mere modesty, she firmly rejects the precious orchid-scent flower to re-establish a safe boundary. Pivoting back to her undeniable comfort zone, she excitedly demands the prince show her the rest of the magnificent royal greenhouse. Smiling at her transparent deflection, Loren gracefully agrees and sweetens the deal by mentioning their collection of ultra-rare magic herbs. Her eyes widen in sheer disbelief as the mention of rare magic herbs instantly shatters her aristocratic composure. Thrilled by the impossible, Yulia frantically questions if these are the exact magical plants deemed entirely untransplantable. Chuckling at her intense reaction, Loren confirms the royal gardeners are indeed engaged in a brutal struggle with the magical flora. Completely awestruck by the botanical triumph, she marvels at the truly incredible and wonderful palace achievement. Bursting with enthusiastic praise, she boldly declares the royal palace gardeners to be absolute botanical geniuses. Recognizing their true nature, she silently notes that magic herbs are legendary medicinal plants heavily saturated with pure mana. Gesturing smoothly, Loren guides his captivated fiancée deeper into the massive greenhouse toward the prized magical collection. A sprawling, lush paradise of exotic vegetation explodes into view, immediately commanding her absolute and undivided attention. Immersed in the vibrant foliage, she stares utterly transfixed by the sheer magical density of the royal sanctuary. Overwhelmed by the majestic sight, she breathlessly likens the stunning royal conservatory to a brilliant greenhouse descended directly from the heavens. Spotting a rare thornfruit plant, she hesitates to approach until Loren actively encourages her to step closer. Seizing the initiative to fuel her curiosity, the prince immediately offers to summon the head gardener for a proper scientific introduction. Projecting his royal authority, Loren calls out across the lush foliage to quickly locate the elusive greenhouse caretaker. A humble servant swiftly emerges from the dense greenery, bowing respectfully to ask how he may serve His Highness. Wasting no time, Loren commands the swift presentation of the highly guarded magic herbs for his eager guest. Startled by the specific request, the gardener hesitates slightly as Yulia practically vibrates with the overwhelming desire to get closer. The legendary magic herb sits proudly on display, radiating an intense, undeniable aura of untamed magical energy. Striking up an immediate professional rapport, the fierce noblewoman confidently introduces herself directly to the seasoned caretaker. Introducing himself as Dan Robin, the royal gardener warmly grants Yulia full permission to inspect his precious magical charges. Launching into an intense interrogation, Yulia discovers the delicate specimen was carefully extracted from the southern Marrow forest. Firing off rapid botanical questions, she relentlessly probes Dan about the plant's rooting process and the stability of its deadly poison. Stunned by the sudden casual mention of lethal toxins, Prince Loren visibly recoils in genuine, panicked alarm. Calming the panicked prince, Yulia smoothly explains that the mild poison easily dilutes into a potent medicine for weak hearts. Fascinated by her immense knowledge, Loren quickly regains his composure and actively urges her to continue the brilliant medical lecture. Pivoting back to the caretaker, Yulia confirms her sharp suspicions regarding the brutal difficulty of the magical transplant process. Dan reveals that surviving the transplant requires extreme cleverness with specialized fertilizers just to keep the fragile plant alive until the next fruiting season. Elaborating on his brilliant technique, The gardener explains he feeds the rare plant withered leaves heavily infused with residual mana. Awestruck by the sheer extravagance, Yulia marvels at the royal palace casually utilizing potent medicinal leaves as simple dirt fertilizer. A sharp pang of reality hits her as she reflects on how poorer territories simply cannot afford to waste such valuable botanical resources. Falling into deep scientific contemplation, she aggressively questions the absolute necessity of utilizing mana-enriched fertilizer for basic plant survival. Dan eagerly agrees with her logic, noting that wild magic herbs manage to survive in unforgiving nature without constant access to mana-infused nutrients. Together, the two botanical enthusiasts ponder the deep, unresolved mystery of why these stubborn plants thrive so fiercely on magical fertilizer. Completely lost in her absolute element, Yulia radiates pure, unbridled joy while fiercely geeking out over advanced agricultural theory. Gently breaking her intense botanical trance, Loren steps in to smoothly suggest they finally continue their royal garden tour. Snapping violently back to harsh reality, a heavily blushing Yulia frantically apologizes for completely ignoring her royal fiancé. Unable to resist the lure of knowledge, she boldly asks the stunned royal gardener if she can return to study alongside him again. Caught completely off guard by the powerful noblewoman's intense dedication, Dan stammers in sheer, overwhelmed bewilderment. Seizing the perfect opportunity, Loren smoothly promises to bring her back himself while tactfully reminding her of their waiting mothers. A sudden wave of intense embarrassment crashes over Yulia as she finally remembers she is smack in the middle of a formal marriage meeting. Drawing her attention back with a soft, affectionate call, Loren firmly anchors the flustered noblewoman to the romantic reality of their encounter. Offering a monumental royal temptation, Loren promises to unveil the legendary Queen's Garden if Yulia accepts his grand proposal. Astonished by the magnificent and exclusive offer, Yulia repeats the sacred garden's name in sheer, breathless disbelief. Loren smoothly explains that this highly restricted sanctuary has belonged exclusively to generations of ruling queens. He brutally deploys political logic, pointing out that sealing their engagement will permanently shatter any threats of Lygra's returning. Pure shock paralyzes Yulia as she processes the terrifying, lingering implication of his tactical warning. Panicking rapidly, she frantically interrogates the prince about the actual, horrifying possibility of being forcefully re-engaged to Lygra's. Loren drops a massive political bombshell, revealing that consort Irene aggressively demanded the Cornell engagement 4 years ago but was secretly blocked by the Duke. Realizing the immense, silent burden her father carried all these years, Yulia whispers his name in profound, overwhelming gratitude. Smirking with absolute confidence, Loren declares that his powerful mother stands as the only undeniable force capable of crushing Irene's schemes. Staring deeply and unapologetically into her wisteria eyes, the first prince boldly reiterates his genuine, fierce fondness for her. Utterly overwhelmed by the intense royal confession, the flustered noblewoman respectfully bows her head in deep gratitude. Catching her lingering, stubborn skepticism, Loren groans in mild frustration at her blatant refusal to believe his romantic sincerity. Flashing a determined, magnetic smile, he vows to relentlessly prove his absolute devotion until she fully accepts his fiery truth. Striking a perfect tactical chord, he swears never to restrict her brilliant agricultural passions if she chooses to stand beside him. Teasingly ordering her to stop dangerously blowing up gazebos, he laughs as she frantically promises to cease her explosive magical accidents. Sealing the ultimate, unbreakable deal, Loren heavily tempts the botanical prodigy with unrestricted royal permission to ruthlessly hunt for magic herbs. He dramatically expands his irresistible bribe, promising absolute, unquestioned access to the restricted royal forests and the legendary Marrow lands. Utterly defeated by the flawless and overpowering botanical temptation, Yulia stares back in absolute, paralyzed awe. Her voice trembling with intense, undeniable emotion, she passionately calls out the victorious first prince's name. Throwing away every ounce of aristocratic hesitation, she aggressively begs Loren to finalize their monumental royal engagement. Beaming with absolute, radiant triumph, Loren smoothly and instantaneously accepts her desperate, fiery proposal. Exactly 3 days after the historic marriage meeting, a grand royal carriage pulls smoothly into the sprawling Cornell estate. Bowing with impeccable grace, Yulia warmly welcomes the handsome first prince to her majestic family home. Stepping forward with romantic, blinding confidence, Loren smoothly compliments the stunning appearance of his brand-new fiancé. Blushing furiously under the direct royal praise, she shyly expresses her nervous, bubbling gratitude. Fidgeting awkwardly with her elegant dress, she bashfully admits that she rarely confines herself to such fancy, restrictive clothing. Ignoring the superficial fashion, Lorraine eagerly demands to inspect the legendary agricultural dirt field she has been fiercely cultivating. Rationalizing the bizarre romantic outing, Yulia fiercely convinces herself that showing off a dirt field perfectly aligns with classic botanical dates. Guiding the royal heir through the sprawling estate, she proudly halts before her prized, aggressively messy agricultural sanctuary. Staring deeply at the hardcore setup, Lorraine openly admits the wild farm completely shatters his expectations by being terrifyingly professional grade. Beaming with absolute, unbridled pride, Yulia points to her crops and eagerly asks if the vibrant, green harvest looks delicious. Surveying the wildly untamed landscape, Lorraine listens intensely as she excitedly explains how she terraformed a massive basin into a functional pond. Boasting about her brilliant ecological engineering, she happily reveals that a dedicated squad of wild frogs moved in to brutally exterminate crop pests. Earning her absolute, unwavering respect, these amphibious predators proudly serve as the relentless, deadly sentries of her precious field. Suddenly breaking her intense agricultural lecture, she excitedly thrusts her finger toward a hidden, dusty corner of the dirt field. Catching sight of an unexpected botanical treasure, a sudden jolt of pure, electric surprise ripples violently through her. Instantly concerned by her sudden, dramatic outburst, Lorraine quickly demands to know what exactly caught her intense, focused attention. Dropping aggressively to the dirt in pure elation, she joyfully discovers a fresh patch of magical herbs thriving wildly in the soil. Analyzing the miraculous, unexpected growth, she deduces they aggressively sprouted from resilient, self-sown seeds dropped during the previous chaotic harvest. Marveling at nature's fierce tenacity, she passionately explains how voluntarily scattered seeds survive brutal, unforgiving conditions to rapidly conquer the earth once again. Beaming with excitement, Yulia eagerly anticipates her herbs growing huge. Highlighting their vitality-boosting properties, she promises to brew a soothing tea once the delicious plants are harvested. Suddenly, Yulia freezes as a sharp realization washes over her. Prince Loren watches her pause, projecting silent and questioning curiosity. Apologizing profusely, Yulia admits she feels selfish for dominating the conversation with her own interests. Smiling warmly, Loren assures her he is truly enjoying the talk and urges her to continue. Pondering deeply, Yulia notes that crops and agricultural fields form the essential foundation of any nation. Leaning in, Loren agrees wholeheartedly and declares his own strong interest in the subject. Yulia respectfully questions how agriculture concerns a royal, assuming government leaders issue orders from high above the foundational workers. Meeting her gaze, Loren firmly states it is utterly foolish for leaders at the top to remain ignorant of the basics. He adds that listening to a passionate expert like her is incredibly insightful and educational. Touched but humbled, Yulia confesses she has been blindly obsessed with her own personal hobbies. Looking down, she sadly laments that her perspective on the world has been painfully narrow. Reaching out gently, Loren urges Yulia to wipe that sad expression off her face. Surprised by his maturity, Yulia points out that 14-year-old Prince Loren is only a single year older than her. Looking away, Loren admits his harsh environment forced him to rush prematurely into playing the part of an adult. Chuckling softly, he commands her to drop that troubled look. Stepping closer, Loren promises that when she is with him, she is completely free to immerse herself in the things she loves. He smiles brightly, declaring that living freely makes everything far more enjoyable. Blushing slightly, Yulia asks if the prince is truly okay with her indulging her passions. Without a moment of hesitation, Loren confirms his absolute sincerity. Reminding her of their new bond, Loren gently commands her to stop calling him Prince, since they are officially engaged. Holding her gaze, he asks her to simply call him Loren. Flustered but happy, Yulia softly tests out his name. A tender, unspoken connection deepens between the newly engaged couple as they share a quiet moment. The scene violently shifts as hidden figures maneuver through the shadowy political ramifications of the royal arrangement. A shadowed advisor hums in deep, calculating contemplation. Analyzing the volatile situation, the advisor notes that the king remains completely unaware of Loren and Yulia's engagement. A confidant confirms this dangerous fact, stating it aligns exactly with what the queen had shared. Realizing the queen prioritized extreme caution, they question if the king will be permanently kept in the dark. The advisor solemnly states that a formal engagement carries heavy, undeniable political weight. Outlining standard protocol, he explains that a written contract must normally be signed by both house heads and submitted to the Ministry of Justice. Acknowledging the king's inevitable opposition, the ally explains this is exactly why the engagement was kept a strict, guarded secret. Frowning in concern, the advisor questions if bypassing the king renders the secret engagement legally invalid. The ally clarifies that this is a special case, as marriage documents sometimes lack all required signatures depending on specific circumstances. Shocked, the advisor asks about the existence of official relief measures designed for such unprecedented situations. The ally elaborates that exceptions are legally made if a parent possesses severe character flaws or financial instability. Realizing the brilliant loophole, the advisor understands that the signature of just one parent, backed by a credible witness, becomes perfectly acceptable. The ally points out the widely known fact that the king spends all his time with the second consort and entirely neglects the queen's palace. Exploiting this undeniable negligence, the queen successfully used the prime minister as a witness to legitimize the engagement papers without the king's signature. Apologizing sincerely, the speaker deeply regrets that the political arrangements had to be kept strictly private for their own safety. Laughing warmly, the respondent swiftly assures them that their family does not mind such necessary secrecy at all. Turning for confirmation, the speaker cheerfully asks Yulia for her enthusiastic agreement. Beaming brightly, Yulia happily declares that she actually prefers small and low-key gatherings anyway. Smiling fondly, her companion remarks that such a humble preference sounds exactly like her true nature. A quiet, affectionate atmosphere settles peacefully over the gathered group as they share a warm understanding. Shifting to a serious tone, the advisor notes that keeping things quiet is undeniably safer for everyone involved. He warns darkly that there is no telling what kind of vicious trouble consort Irene would stir up if she discovered the secret engagement. A heavy, unspoken tension completely fills the room at the mere mention of the dangerous consort's name. The advisor firmly states it would be ideal to finalize the marriage with Prince Loren quickly, though he fully expects unseen complications to arise. Regardless of the immense risks, they confirm with relief that His Majesty remains blissfully ignorant of the royal palace's inner workings. Voicing a highly practical concern, a confidant questions if Prince Loren's frequent visits to Yulia will eventually expose their carefully guarded secret. Brushing off the worry, the advisor confidently explains that the prince cautiously uses the servant's carriage to remain completely undetected. Observing the young couple's dynamic, they note with amusement that the prince has clearly fallen in love at first sight. Chuckling proudly, the speaker readily admits that anyone who recognizes Yulia's undeniable charm possesses truly excellent taste. Laughing lightly, they agree that there are absolutely no lingering issues blossoming between the perfectly matched pair. Sighing softly, the speaker desperately hopes their delicate plans proceed smoothly without any further disastrous obstacles. Steeling their resolve, they firmly declare that the utmost caution must be strictly maintained moving forward. Nodding obediently, the listener respectfully agrees with their father's stern and necessary warning. The scene shifts smoothly, transitioning completely away from the tense political scheming of the adults. A bright, sunny day casts a stunningly warm and inviting glow over the peaceful, sprawling estate. Gazing thoughtfully into the distance, a solitary figure wonders aloud if Yulia will truly find lasting happiness. Bursting with sudden excitement, a cheerful voice warmly welcomes Prince Loren's highly anticipated arrival. Rushing forward with a brilliant smile, Prince Loren happily calls out Yulia's name in pure delight. Greeting him joyfully, Yulia welcomes him back from his week-long inspection while admitting just how much she missed him. The two share a tender, heartwarming look as they finally reunite after their agonizingly long week apart. Peering curiously at a strange, unfamiliar object in Loren's hands, Yulia softly asks what he has brought her. Loren proudly reveals a wild grape seedling from the distant Agras territory, instantly surprising Yulia with how far north he traveled. Explaining its rich history, Loren mentions the local villagers used to brew wild grape wine from these very plants a long time ago. He eagerly adds that while the ancient drink wasn't particularly sweet, its legendary aroma was supposed to be absolutely incredible. Sadly, Loren reveals the original producers died out long ago, tragically taking the ancient brewing knowledge with them to the grave. Examining the fascinating plant closely, Yulia quietly marvels at its stunningly vibrant bluish-purple hue. Smiling gently, Loren notes she has always loved small blue fruits, leaving Yulia completely stunned that he remembered such a tiny detail. Looking at her with absolute, unwavering sincerity, Loren confidently replies that of course he remembered. A powerful wave of unexpected emotion washes violently over Yulia as she processes his touching and deeply personal thoughtfulness. Blushing furiously, Yulia deeply thanks Prince Loren for the incredibly meaningful and personalized botanical gift. Clutching her chest in pure confusion, Yulia internally panics as her racing heart suddenly flutters wildly out of control. Overwhelmed by her violently racing pulse, she stares at the young prince in a totally new and startling light. Loren watches her flustered, breathless reaction with a remarkably calm, gentle, and utterly captivating expression. Breaking the heavy, romantic silence, Yulia softly calls out his name, entirely captivated by his newly magnetic presence. The scene opens in breathless silence as the young couple intensely processes the sudden, intimate moment between them. A soft gasp escapes as the heavy, undeniable weight of their romantic tension finally settles. Apologizing for his sudden actions, Loren admits he simply couldn't resist how incredibly cute Yulia looked. Leaning in closer, he anxiously asks if she hated the unexpected kiss. Flustered but completely sincere, Yulia quickly reassures him that she didn't hate it at all. Blushing fiercely, she stammers that she was just entirely taken by surprise. Gazing deep into her eyes, Loren passionately confesses his genuine love for her. Overcome with soaring emotion, Yulia softly and happily returns his heartfelt confession. The newly engaged couple shares a deeply tender and quiet moment of mutual affection. Smiling warmly, Loren expresses his immense relief and pure, unadulterated happiness. While undeniably overjoyed, Yulia trails off as a sudden, comical doubt creeps into her racing mind. She hilariously questions to herself if the handsome prince actually harbors a secret preference for chubby girls. Time flows peacefully forward, sweeping away the quiet romance as the story jumps ahead. A heavy sigh marks a dramatic shift in the atmosphere as a highly significant royal milestone approaches. Half a year after their secret engagement, the momentous day of Prince Loren's birthday finally arrives. A small-scale coming-of-age party is held at the palace to celebrate Loren turning 16, the official age of adulthood in Mariadia. The surprisingly modest scale of the vital banquet is a direct result of the king and the second consort maliciously finding petty faults. The royal rivals aggressively protested the celebration by using recent southern rain disasters and the high priest's death as convenient political excuses. Frustrated allies quickly note that the rain incident was minor and the bedridden high priest had passed away over 3 months prior. A loyal servant angrily mutters that the king would undoubtedly throw a massive banquet for Prince Ligras regardless of any national tragedy. A sudden, sharp noise from outside completely interrupts the servant's bitter political complaints. Peering out curiously, someone spots an unexpected carriage pulling up to the quiet estate. Yulia looks up in mild confusion as the sudden commotion draws her immediate attention. A servant hastily approaches to inform Yulia that she has a completely unannounced visitor. Bewildered by the timing, Yulia wonders who could possibly be visiting her on such an important royal day. The heavy doors swing open to reveal a shocking and completely unexpected guest. Yulia gasps in utter disbelief as Prince Loren himself casually stands before her. Panicking instantly, she desperately questions why he is here instead of attending his own vital coming-of-age banquet. Her mind races wildly as she hilariously wonders if a royal body double took his place at the palace. Smiling softly, Loren quickly crushes her wild theory by confirming he doesn't employ body doubles. When asked if the party ended early, Loren bitterly explains that the event simply stopped feeling like his own celebration. Disgusted by the toxic atmosphere, he boldly reveals that he found no point in staying and secretly slipped away. As Yulia stammers in shock, Loren confidently assures her that his dramatic absence probably hasn't even been noticed. He explains that the supposedly small gathering bloated into a mid-sized affair packed entirely with unfamiliar strangers. Hearing that the defeated queen surrendered control of the guest list to their rivals, Yulia feels deep sympathy for her tragic plight. Loren looks down with a shadowed expression, silently bearing the crushing weight of his family's fractured dynamics. Reaching out tenderly, Yulia gently pats his arm to comfort the runaway prince. Loren bitterly admits that letting the king and consort Irene entirely hijack the event ruined any sense of personal celebration. Furious at the blatant disrespect, he reveals that despite being the guest of honor, only the king was permitted to give a speech. Mocking his father's dismissive speech about skipping formalities to just drink wine, Loren exposes the true, insulting farce of the royal banquet. Disgusted by the royal sabotage, Loren reveals that the king gathered fiancé candidates specifically chosen to infuriate his mother. He notes with bitter amusement that his arrogant brother Ligras immediately took a liking to several of the young ladies. Shockingly, Ligras audaciously stole the first dance with a lady originally intended to be Loren's own fiancé candidate. Seizing a quiet opportunity amidst the chaotic banquet, Loren discreetly slipped away into the palace garden. A loyal maid intercepted him in the shadows, expertly guiding the young prince to a safe escape route. Appalled by the blatant disrespect, Yulia sympathizes that ruining his official coming-of-age celebration is far too cruel. Brushing off the insult with a weary smile, Loren admits the entire fiasco was so absurd it became genuinely funny. His expression softens as he tenderly declares that the ruined party allowed him to secretly visit her. Eager to lift his spirits, Yulia excitedly announces she has a special surprise to show him. She carefully presents a beautifully wrapped wooden box to the curious prince. Blushing with quiet pride, she humbly confesses that she crafted the mysterious gift entirely by herself. Thrilled by her personal touch, Loren eagerly asks for permission to open the exquisite present. He gently lifts the lid, revealing a neatly folded, handcrafted garment resting inside the box. Lifting the scarf, he marvels at its refined indigo hue tinged with wisteria and its incredibly soft texture. He warmly praises Yulia's remarkable skill in creating such a luxurious and high-quality piece of clothing. Yulia happily confirms that she meticulously wove the delicate fabric herself using a traditional weaving loom. She explains the thread comes from the rare Ica vine harvested directly from their own mountainous territory. Apologizing for the delay, she admits that striving for absolute perfection cost her precious time before his birthday. However, she beams with relief that she successfully delivered the handmade gift before his special day officially ended. Deeply moved by her dedication, Loren offers his most sincere and heartfelt gratitude. He joyfully proclaims that her beautiful gift completely erases the day's chaos and makes this the best celebration ever. Later that evening, the warm festivities continue with a modest, private celebration hosted safely at the Cornell estate. A servant pours a glass of low-alcohol fruit wine, noting it is the perfect introductory drink for a newly minted adult. Loren graciously accepts the refined beverage with a polite word of thanks. The mood darkens briefly when someone mentions the royal banquet exclusively served potent cocktails designed to intoxicate the ladies. Loren confirms the malicious setup, recalling a helpful maid who secretly warned him about the dangerously spiked beer cocktails. Yulia's father scoffs in sheer disgust, condemning the king's utterly shameless and deplorable tactics. Refusing to let royal toxicity ruin their night, the host swiftly calls to change the sour mood. The group cheerfully raises their glasses, clinking them together in a hearty, celebratory toast. Despite the warm atmosphere, a sudden shadow of insecurity quietly creeps across Yulia's expressive face. Later that night, Yulia lies awake in the darkness, unable to quiet her rapidly racing thoughts. She tosses and turns, completely consumed by an intense wave of unexpected anxiety. Her mind obsesses over the stunningly beautiful fiancé candidates forced upon Loren, women alluring enough to tempt even the second prince. Toxic, repressed memories brutally assault her mind, echoing cruel voices that once branded her as ugly and unworthy of life. Suddenly, a brilliant spark of inspiration shatters her downward spiral as she jolts upright in bed. Clenching her fists with renewed determination, she vows to brew a revolutionary weight loss potion to transform herself. She immediately begins analyzing magical plants, rejecting earth, a tribute flora for being notoriously heavy, dull, and packed with calories. She instantly dismisses water attribute plants as well, knowing they dangerously promote unwanted water weight despite their low calories. She considers fire attribute ingredients, noting their extreme spiciness naturally restricts overeating. Finally, she zeroes in on wind attribute plants, realizing their bitter, fibrous, and low-calorie properties make them the perfect medicinal solution. Realizing the potential of magical flora, Yulia concludes that consuming wind attribute food might finally help her lose weight. Acting swiftly on her bold theory, she vigorously brews the experimental botanical mixture in her room. Recoiling instantly, she gags as a horrific stench violently erupts from the bubbling cauldron. Clenching her fists with iron resolve, she desperately motivates herself to push through the dreadful ordeal. Downing the concoction, she nearly vomits as the foul liquid assaults her taste buds with incredible grossness. Wiping her mouth in sheer disgust, She realizes that forcing this vile drink down every day would be absolute torture. Formulating a hasty backup plan, she hopes adding sweet maple honey will make the terrible potion easier to swallow. Carefully measuring the golden syrup, she meticulously drips the sweet honey into the foul green liquid. Raising the newly modified potion to her trembling lips, she mentally braces for a second agonizing sip. Swallowing hard, she desperately wonders if the wretched taste is even slightly better than yesterday's horrific batch. The liquid hits her tongue, and her face instantly contorts into a mask of pure, unadulterated disgust. Spewing the vile brew entirely, she loudly wails that the cursed mixture is still unspeakably gross. Suddenly, a sharp and vicious pain violently stabs through her heavily cramping stomach. Coughing uncontrollably, she doubles over in agony as the toxic concoction violently wreaks havoc on her fragile insides. Hearing the sudden commotion, a panicked maid immediately bursts through the door to check on her suffering lady. Rushing in alongside the maid, her frantic father spots his daughter and shouts her name in sheer terror. Clutching her agonizing stomach, Yulia weakly insists she is fine while dreading they will completely misunderstand the situation. Her vision blurring rapidly, she completely loses her strenuous battle against the overwhelming physical pain. The terrified maid screams loudly as Yulia's lifeless body fully collapses onto the hard wooden floor. Sprinting forward in pure panic, her desperate father loudly cries out her name. Waking up safely in bed later, she listens as her exasperated father questions her absurd attempt to brew a dangerous weight loss potion. Startled by a sudden, familiar presence, Yulia weakly stammers Prince Lauren's name in utter shock. Stepping forward, Loren explains he coincidentally bumped into the Duke at the palace just as news of her collapse arrived. Her father confirms he heard the terrifying news directly from Sophia after contacting the manor for routine business. Blushing furiously, Yulia internally curses her incredibly bad luck for being caught in such a deeply embarrassing situation. Staring down at her with intense concern, Loren gently demands to know why she suddenly felt the need to lose weight. Flustered and completely panicking, Yulia stammers nervously while wildly searching for a believable excuse. Mentally agonizing over the truth, she realizes she is far too embarrassed to confess she just wanted to be completely worthy of standing by his side. Reading her transparent expressions effortlessly, Loren softly asks if she endured all this suffering solely for his sake. Defeated by his gentle intuition, Yulia averts her eyes and sheepishly admits the undeniable truth. Smiling warmly, Loren sincerely thanks her for going to such incredible, albeit foolish, lengths for him. As Yulia stares in sheer confusion, Loren firmly declares that he genuinely likes her exactly the way she is. Caressing her face tenderly, he insists she is perfectly fine as the incredibly cute girl she already is. Taking her hands gently, he passionately adds that her soft skin feels wonderfully comforting to hold. Blushing a deep crimson hue, Yulia finds herself completely speechless at his bold and unexpected praise. Leaning in closer, Loren insists that while she would still be cute thin, she is absolutely perfect as a soft angel right now. Confessing a newly discovered truth, he admits he loves hugging her soft form and fears she might break if she got any thinner. Staring with unyielding devotion, he boldly declares he would even love to see an even chubbier, flawlessly perfect Yulia. Overwhelmed by his intense and slightly absurd affection, Yulia silently stares at the deeply smitten prince. Smiling reassuringly, Loren concludes that her current, beautiful self is already entirely worthy of his love. Loren casts a warm but regretful glance as he prepares to leave. Sighing heavily, he admits it is a shame but he really has to go. Turning back one last time, he firmly reminds Yulia that she absolutely does not need to lose weight. The door clicks shut, leaving a stunned silence in the wake of his sudden departure. Clenching her fists, Yulia stubbornly mutters that she still desperately wants to lose weight regardless of his words. Observing the situation, her brother sighs and bluntly calls Prince Loren a slightly disappointing royal for explicitly liking chubby girls. He notes that while Loren seemed genuinely worried about the dangerous potion, his anxiety definitely ran deeper than just her health. The brother reveals that Loren has apparently been openly declaring for a while that girls are best when plump and soft. Frowning thoughtfully, he mentions that this strange preference clearly left the queen worried about how to handle the situation. He explains that if palace gossips start bad-mouthing Yulia, she will inevitably try to lose weight and heavily strain her relationship with the prince. Leaning back, he reiterates that Prince Loren simply possesses a genuine, undeniable preference for plump figures. Shrugging slightly, he admits that the prince's specific tastes are not inherently terrible on their own. However, he firmly states that as her brother, he hates seeing Yulia targeted by pointless mockery while her fiancé actively encourages her current figure. Nodding in agreement, their father suggests they ask the queen to formally persuade Prince Loren to change his public behavior. Turning back to Yulia, her brother sternly advises her to lose weight naturally and safely without relying on dangerous magical potions. Defending her actions slightly, Yulia stammers that while the drastic method was unhealthy, she actually did manage to lose a little bit of weight. Her eyes light up as she reveals her hidden motive, hoping a successful potion could have become a lucrative new specialty for their territory. Shocked by her reckless ambition, her father loudly shouts her name in deep, exasperated concern. Shrinking back, Yulia explains the potion was packed with the wind magic attribute, leading her to believe it would safely make her lighter. Glaring sternly, her brother demands to know if she properly considered the severe medical risks before blindly chugging the concoction. A heavy wave of guilt washes over Yulia as she averts her eyes in shameful realization. Fidgeting nervously, she weakly defends herself by stating she was the only one drinking it and it theoretically wasn't a deadly poison. Slamming his hand down, her brother fiercely reprimands her, declaring he cannot ignore her reckless mentality because everyone would be heartbroken if she died. Bowing her head in genuine remorse, Yulia softly apologizes to her family and everyone in the territory. Grabbing the abandoned potion bottle, her brother closely inspects the volatile magical medicine. Analyzing the disastrous brew, he deduces that the highly concentrated fire magic attribute is exactly what brutally ravaged her stomach. He points out that the sheer amount of dietary fiber created an impossibly massive burden on her fragile digestive system. Shaking his head in disbelief, he warns that taking such a violent mixture long-term is completely out of the question. Trembling at the thought, Yulia realizes that if she had sold this, desperate people might have dangerously forced themselves to keep drinking it. A chilling silence fills the room as they acknowledge how disastrous it would have been if innocent civilians got violently sick from the powerful magical grass base. Issuing a stern warning, Yulia's brother insists they must be extra cautious with these volatile magical items. Turning to the prince, he demands Loren help Yulia safely lose weight while Loren stubbornly insists she doesn't need to. The brother warns that malicious palace women will incessantly mock Yulia by cruelly calling her the chubby princess consort. Standing firm, Loren fiercely vows to protect her from the toxic gossip. Taking his obsession further, Loren bizarrely declares he would even gain weight alongside her to make her comfortable. Exasperated by the prince, the brother forcefully reminds him that Yulia's current figure actually stems from an extremely unhealthy diet. Shocked by this revelation, Loren listens as the brother explains Yulia possessed a naturally slender figure up until age 12. Emphasizing her medical well-being, the brother insists returning to her natural figure is critical for Yulia's long-term health. He pointedly adds that royals are naturally expected to live incredibly long lives. Striking a nerve, he asks Loren if he truly wants his beloved Yulia to suffer an early death before him. Bowing his head slightly, the concerned brother desperately pleads with the prince to help save his sister. Defeated by the undeniable medical logic, Loren finally relents and reluctantly agrees to support the weight loss plan. Subjected to a rigorous new routine, Yulia is forced to work hard through standard dieting with no snacking and moderate exercise. Over time, this healthy and balanced approach steadily proves to be highly effective. 6 grueling months quickly pass as Yulia commits entirely to her new lifestyle. Presenting a mysterious object, Loren gently asks Yulia if she would be willing to wear it for him. Staring curiously at the intricate item, Yulia quietly asks the prince to explain what it is. Loren reveals it is a specialized magic tool specifically designed to make her appearance look incredibly plain. Harboring intense jealousy, Loren explains there is no need to show her true beauty to anyone else, especially his foolish younger brother. Dismissing the concern, Yulia logically points out that she attends a different academy and doubts the second prince would ever notice her. Gripping her hands tightly, Loren practically begs her to wear the tool just to put his fiercely protective mind at ease. Observing the situation, her brother glares in disgust at the blatant possessiveness of the magic tool her fiancé forced upon her. Scoffing at the royal drama, the brother recalls the younger prince's cheeky insult claiming Loren has simply never known true love before. Snapping out of his thoughts, the frustrated brother scolds Yulia for silently accepting the restrictive magical accessory. Defending her compliant choice, Yulia admits she doesn't fully understand the royal feud but feels it is safer to just wear it for now. Sighing heavily, Her brother openly voices his deep and lingering concern over her troubling submissiveness to the prince. Stepping in to calm the sudden tension, their father gently diffuses the sibling argument. Pointing out the carriage window, the father brightly announces they have finally arrived at the prestigious Royal Academy. Looking upon the massive grounds, a wave of excitement builds as the highly anticipated martial arts tournament is about to begin.